a return to Richmond Senate.
It's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up throughout the unit. Yeah,
it's hard to see from
here.
here.
There are 40 Senate seats that are being decided in this election. So this is like right now a look at the 7 of the seats that are viewed as competitive by both major parties. So some of them were a shoo-in for the Dems, some were a shoo-in for the Republicans. There were a few, though, that were going to be very much contested. Major parties, as you see here, districts 27, 30, and 27 are in Northern Virginia area, and we have reporters in all 3 districts for you tonight.
We want to go to our Nick Minock. He's covering the Segura camp. He is in Republican District 31. Let's check in with him.
Well, we're live in Ashburn. This is the Belmont Country Club. Juan Pablo Segura supporters are inside. We're expecting that crowd to come outside, but he is locked in a tight race with his Democratic opponent, Russet Perry. This has been an expensive, contentious Senate races. We've seen a lot of money poured into the state Senate races, the kind of money you expect to be spent in U.S. congressional races. We're talking millions of dollars. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin spent a lot of time in Loudoun County and Fauquier County trying to flip the seat going into election night. See, there's 40 state Senate races across the Commonwealth. And going into election night, a lot of Republicans felt good about winning maybe 19 seats. This was supposed to be their 20th seat in order to get the majority. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears will be the tie-breaking vote, but right now I'm looking at my phone and the results coming in, and Segura is down by a couple thousand votes at least, but still too close to call a projected winner at this point. We did catch up with Mr. Segura earlier today in western Loudoun County, Percival. That's an area he had to do really well in to pull this off. Here's what he told us earlier today about some of the most important issues he feels are in this race. Take a listen.
Well, the number one issue, we've knocked thousands of doors, talking to, I think I shook 1,000 hands today at the polls, is education. We've got to have parents more involved in the schools. The school system can't hide things from parents. They just hid more than 9 overdoses from parents last week. And so we got to get more transparency, accountability, and safety.
And let's talk about the Loudoun County School Board. All 9 seats are on the ballot, and we're seeing results trickle in for all of this, and we're seeing some shocking things right now. There are 2 incumbents running for re-election in Loudoun County. On the school board, it looks like both are losing at this point. Take a look at the Ashburn district. Dina Griffiths is ahead of Harris Mahadavi. Mahadavi is the vice chair of the Loudoun County School Board, and he was seeking re-election. That is in the Ashburn districts, and Dina Griffiths is up by hundreds of votes. And this is a very blue district. So Harris is a Democrat. Dina is a Republican-endorsed school board candidate, and she is ahead. Now let's look at the Leesburg district, where incumbent Erica Ogadegbe, a school board member, Democrat endorsed, is losing right now to Lauren Chernoff. Chernoff is an independent candidate running for school board. You might remember her from last year. She ran in the special election against Ogadegbe, and she lost that special election, but Lauren Chernoff returned, and it appears she's winning most of the precincts in the Leesburg School Board District. Now let's shift gears and look at what's happening in the Little River District in Loudoun County. It appears right now Joe Smith is ahead of his Democratic opponent, not by much, but it looks like Mr. Smith is well positioned. And looking at the Catoctin School Board District, that's western Loudoun County, Carrie LaBelle, appears that she may win that seat. Too close to call at this point, still very early in the night, but at this point, out of 9 seats on the school board, it looks like 3 at least may be Republican, and then Lauren Chernoff, the independent, will keep track of this ahead on 7 News. Live in Ashburn, Nick Minock, 7 News.
All right, thanks, Nick. And this is what's happening, meanwhile, right now at Russet Perry's headquarters at Stone Tower Winery in Leesburg. Looks pretty quiet there. She's the Democratic candidate in the state Senate District 31 race. We'll bring you all the latest results as they come in.
It's kind of a winery, too. It's not a beer hall. So, I mean, you can see there's a very calm and quiet over the room there. We're waiting for a little energy. Hopefully that'll come. All right, let's head to Senate District 30. It's made up of parts of Prince William County, Manassas City, and Manassas Park City. The
Republican candidate is Bill Wolf, and the Democrat is Donica Rome. Let's check in now with 7 News' Christian Flores. He's live in Manassas covering the district's results. Right now, he's at Danica Rome's event. Christian, what's happening there?
Well, we have yet to see Delegate Danica Rome, but still plenty of excitement in this room. It seems like the Democrats are doing well, very well, in the down ballot races here in Prince William County. But this is one of the races that Democrats really needed to have in order to secure and keep their majority in the state Senate. That was something that's going to be super important for the Democrats, especially with Republicans controlling the House and the governorship as well. But we have yet to see Danica Rome. However, we have seen that she has about a 7-point lead, according to the AP, a little bit more than 80% of votes reported. And that's actually overperforming compared to what Democrats did last year for the congressional races, where Democrats won by about 6%. I'm gonna go ahead and step out of the way to show you just the crowds that we're seeing out here. You can see we're at the Portuguese Community Center, which is where the Democrats' election night watch party is, and it's absolutely packed out here. Now, this is not just for Delegate Danica Rome, who's looking for a state Senate seat. It's also for House District 21 and 22, those candidates, Josh Thomas in House District 21 and Travis Nemhart in House District 22. So we're definitely going to be watching to pay attention to see if any of those candidates come to the door yet, but those races are still a little bit too close to call right now, so they're probably going to check in just a little bit later. And right now we actually have Senate District 29 Senator Jeremy Pike speaking. He won his race. So right now we're still monitoring a lot of these close races, and as soon as we get a better idea of who's going to be the projected winner, I'll be sure to keep you updated. Reporting live in Manassas, Christian Flores, 7 News.
All right, Christian, thanks very much. And we also have a crew at Republican candidate Bill Wolf's watch party tonight. That's going on in Manassas. We will keep you posted about any speeches at either of the locations.
And another hotly contested race is in Senate District 27. That's located in Stafford and Spotsylvania. Republican Tara Durant is facing Democrat Joel Griffin and Independent Monica Gary.
7 News' Megan Clark. She's live in Fredericksburg at Joel Griffin's watch party. And Megan, well, it's loud there. What's the atmosphere there now?
Jonathan, Michelle, you may not be able to hear me. It's loud, it's lively here. 7 News, of course, has been tracking these races for months. These are huge endeavors, as you can see, millions of dollars raised by some of these candidates. And of course, tonight, I want to pull these up. We are seeing some of the first results here. Around 67% of the vote counted right now. Joel Griffin, the Democratic candidate, trailing Republican Tara Durant here by less than 2,000 votes at the moment. Again, less than 70% of the vote counted, but that's what we are seeing so far tonight. And as you can see from this video, and even behind me here, this is a packed house. Griffin here was mingling and talking with some of his supporters, and a large crowd was here in support for him at the watch party tonight. And after, of course, he was out at the polls today until they closed, he says. We also talked with Independent Monica Gary there as well. Now, just last week, we followed Griffin as he went door to door doing some last-minute campaigning, but we talked with him here tonight about an hour or so ago, and here is how he is feeling tonight. And he did mention to us, I think we have some sound with him. We'll play that for you in the next hour. But he said he was a first-time candidate. He kind of had to learn on the fly. He learned quickly, but he said he felt supported by his community since the very beginning. And to have them all here with him tonight, he says it's a very special feeling. Now, again, Griffin tailing Durant by under 2,000 votes. Stay with us as those votes come in. For now, reporting live in Stafford County, back to you.
All right. It is kind of loud. It's hard to hear yourself think when it gets that loud.
For sure.
Everyone is watching these races to see if the balance of power shifts in Virginia.
And we want to bring in now our Dave Lucas. And Dave, yes, indeed, the reason why so many folks focus on Virginia elections is because it's usually a good predictor for 2024.
It's these off-year elections that Virginia runs. Sometimes they're bellwethers, sometimes there's not. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens tonight across the Commonwealth. And for some early perspective, let's bring in Dr. Stephen Farnsworth. He's a political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, and frankly, the guy we've leaned on for years to try and put Virginia election results into clear perspective. We know about the closely contested races, but Dr. Farnsworth, this year, all 140 House and Senate seats were newly redrawn, and I'm betting there were lots of voters who, when they got into the booth, said, wait a minute, I don't recognize these names. Do you think that's going to have some sort of fundamental effect on the outcome tonight?
Well, I do think that this is an important change as a result of the fact that partisan majorities are no longer drawing legislative districts in Virginia. Mm-hmm. The boundaries are not being drawn by the incumbents. And so that means that there's going to be a lot of new districts. These are now designed to be more competitive, to be more aligned with county and city boundaries and things like that. And so you're absolutely right. For a lot of people, they look at the ballot and they say, I don't see any incumbents here, even when the incumbent that they had voted for in the past might be representing a district another few blocks over.
I want to widen out the view just a little bit, too. If the GOP governor delivers a solidly Republican state, in other words, winning, you've got the governor's mansion, you've got the House, but if you get the Senate, too, how much does that enhance Glenn Youngkin's national profile and reputation?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the governor has put all of his cards on the table with this contest. He invested heavily getting the Republican candidates that he wanted during the primary stage earlier this year. And then, of course, he's been all in on some of these close races, including the ones that you're mentioning in the Northern Virginia region. This will be very much a referendum on the government, and so on the governor rather. And so, if this is a good night for Republicans, then it'll be a good night for Glenn Youngkin going forward. He needs some wins to get some legislative successes. The last 2 years, of course, that he's been governor, there's been a Democratic majority in the Senate that's blocked a lot of what he's wanted to do. So it requires, I think, in these divided partisan times, for the governor or the president to have the party in the Congress or in the state legislature of the same party identification, or else you're not going to get a lot done legislatively.
Is there a canary in the coal mine in your view? What's the one race you're really looking at to see if that's a bellwether for across the state?
Well, the one that I'm actually looking at is the Segura Perry race, the one that looks so close that we talked about a moment ago on air, and that is just a really a nail biter here in the contest. But the numbers really do suggest that the argument with respect to abortion, that 15-week ban that the governor has talked about, hasn't been a magic bullet for Republicans in Northern Virginia. The reality is that a lot of voters still seem to be very focused on this abortion question and really angry with respect to the reversal of Roe versus Wade. And I think that's been a big challenge for Republicans in this election cycle, talking about abortion in a way that connects with voters.
Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, and a guy that we really lean on heavily in these elections. We will talk again. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks very much. And coming up for us, we're going to hear from former Virginia Governor Doug Wilder.
And as we head to break, here's a look at some more results coming in.
And welcome back to our special election coverage 2023. Tonight's results, and you've heard this before, you're going to hear it a lot more. It could shift the balance of power in Virginia's General Assembly.
And our Tom Rousey is live at the Alert Desk with a closer look at where things stand. Tom?
Yeah, Michelle and Jonathan, could be a nail biter at least for the next hour, 2 hours, maybe all night into tomorrow. We will see. But as we have been mentioning, balance of power, it's up for grabs in the Virginia Senate and the House of Delegates. Every seat being contested. So far in the Senate at this point, Democrats have 13 seats that have been called for them. Republicans 12. This could be a nail biter. Right now, Democrats control the Senate. Republicans trying to take it over. They have one advantage. They only need 20 of the 40 seats because if they can tie the Democrats, the tie-breaking vote would be Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears. She's a Republican, so she would give the Senate to the Republicans if the Republicans can win 20 seats. They need 8 more. Democrats basically need 8 more at this point, too, to avoid that tie. Now, House of Delegates, let's see how that's going. More races called there. At this point, 35 called for the Democrats, 30 for the Republicans. This is a different story. Right now, Republicans control the House of Delegates 52 to 48. At this point, they're behind, but a lot of races yet to be called here. Republicans trying to hold on, Democrats trying to take over the House. We will keep following this. The races are being called fast and furious. We will update this as they come in here. But for now, back to you, Michelle.
All right, Tom, thank you. Our Nick Minogue spoke with Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and asked what voters can expect if Republicans come out ahead.
All right, let's say you hold the House and you flip the Senate in Virginia. Day one, what are your legislative goals? What kind of legislation can people expect?
Well, they should expect us to move aggressively forward with reducing the cost of living and providing more tax relief. They should expect us to be back in parents and back in the blue and continuing to fund behavioral health transformation. Virginians are overtaxed. We're working hard to bring taxes down. Send a group to Richmond that will work with me, not against me.
Governor Youngkin is also calling for tougher penalties for drug dealers who sell fentanyl.
And over the weekend, Maryland Governor Wes Moore came across the river and he was campaigning in Virginia for Democrats. He says the election in the Commonwealth could have far-reaching consequences.
I need one of these signs because I'm excited for this. I'm excited. I'm excited because we are determined to not just have you as a senator, but to know that your leadership is going to correspond well beyond not just Manassas and Virginia, but your leadership matters to all of us around the country. So
as you see there, Governor Moore joining Delegate Danica Rome and Josh Thomas on the campaign trail and spoke with volunteers for their campaigns. So a lot at stake, and what happens tonight could be a big indication of what could happen nationwide.
So we want to bring in now our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman. Scott, what can you tell us about the role of Virginia in this election? Because if you look back at past cycles, there is some sort of correlation between what happens here and then what follows the following year for the general.
Well, you're right about that. And Michelle and Jonathan, everyone wants to assign some level of importance to what we're going to see in the Commonwealth tonight. I think that some of that is going to be too early and a bit overstated, regardless of what happens. If you have the so-called red wave of Virginia that fell short nationally last time, even then, I don't know that that's necessarily going to apply to what we're seeing in 2024. Remember, we are 1 year out from the general election nationally, and a lot is going to happen in between now and then. The themes now of abortion, of some of the gender issues, of what's going on with school boards, may not be so big in 12 months. And in fact, a lot of people who are dissatisfied with both options nationally that appear to be the front runners right now, whether it's Donald Trump or President Biden, are disgruntled. They don't like the numbers. Both of those men are unfavorable in the ratings right now, in the polls. Neither one of them is seen as a glorious champion for the entire country. And so to say that now we can look at what happens in Virginia, that's going to somehow read the tea leaves for us in the future, difficult to try and apply, because ultimately, as we've talked about so many times, people vote with their pocketbooks nationally. And so where is inflation a year from now? Where is the economy a year from now? What is crime doing? Those maybe bigger factors than what we're seeing tonight.
That's what I was just going to ask you, because you brought up some of the talking points as far as abortion and some of the other issues, but last time I checked, those were issues that fell in the top 10, but further down the list, some of them even out of top 10. The big issues are always, James Carville said it back when, it's the economy, stupid.
Right.
People's pocketbook, they vote that way. They also want to know about crime. And also immigration always seemed to be in the top 5 for a lot of people all over geographically across the country. Are those the kinds of things that will take people to the poll and say, this is what I'm going to vote for because those issues resonate with me?
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong, abortion is still going to be played up pretty strong regardless, because right now, especially if you're Democrats, what you're seeing is that we've had, if you include tonight with what's going on in Ohio, remember for audience that may not be paying attention, Ohio's got a vote today on whether or not their state constitution should protect abortion rights for women. And that's happening. That's passing. So what that means is since Roe was overturned, you've had 7 states now where abortion has been the main ballot issue. And most people have gone to the polls and said, I don't believe in an outright ban. I think that we need to have some rights. That's still going to be a talking point. And you're seeing a lot of money poured into it. Look at how much money was poured into this campaign.
Right.
President Biden had more than $1 million of DNC money, he suggested, be pushed into Virginia elections. So you had national money that was redirected just to try and win these. They think that's a theme, Democrats do, that will help protect seats for them. Virginia is a bit of, as Dave used that phrase, a canary in the coal mine, perhaps, for what's going to happen in the future. But again, take a breath, remember it's a year, and remember the wallet speaks louder than almost any other factor.
And the issues that are important today, a year from now, who knows what the issues will be, the way things are moving right now.
Well, and go back real fast to those approval ratings I was talking about. President Biden's approval ratings, latest numbers from 538 show him at 38%. He's only been lower once with 37.5%, right? So we're seeing him at a bottom, and former President Trump's numbers are underwater. So people's dissatisfaction drives votes. Where will it be 12 months from now?
And how will a verdict change voters' minds as well? That's like a whole other
you know, there's a poll out that came out, I think it's a CBS poll out, came out in the past 48 hours.
More
so
popular.
the 34% of people like him more after some of these trials have started.
Plot
so
twist.
the irony grows with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so
Scott,
much,
thank you.
Scott. All right, let's bring in our Dave Lucas with a special guest. Dave?
Michelle, thanks. And we are joined right now by former Virginia Governor Doug Wilder, the first African-American ever elected a governor. He's currently a professor at the appropriately named Wilder School at Virginia Commonwealth University. Governor, great to see you. Folks in
Good to be with you.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
sir. Folks in my business love to make elections horse races. But I'm going to ask you, what races are you watching tonight? What do you think are the important ones?
Well, all of them are very important, but as you know, Northern Virginia really does have so many votes and so many people are looking to see if there's going to be a change there in terms of the party differences. And then the Richmond area had great interest in terms of a casino and how that was going to survive. And it failed last time, and it looks like it's going to fail this time. But I think overall, people are looking to see if being a Democrat or Republican is going to make a real difference. I've always said that Richmond, or Virginia particularly, is not a blue state, nor is it a purple state. It's a people's state. And I still think that. And I think whoever wants to win Virginia next time around, when there is a national election, will have to listen to the people and not depend on party.
That's a great perspective. Governor Youngkin staked his statewide, maybe his national prestige on what happens tonight. What's your feeling there? It's a tough thing to stake out. Virginians send their governors to the state house or to the mansion for just one term, and there are some who think that he may have grander ambitions. What do you think?
Well, I think he's been in office, a couple of years. And I think that the people of Virginia would look to see what that has done, what has come about as a result of that. And when you look at one of the things that we described earlier in terms of inflation, we're looking at money and how it's being spent. Is it being wasted? If it is so, have you seen it? Have you done anything about it? If not, now when? And I think there are several things that Governor Youngkin will be having to deal with, some of them of which I brought to his attention already. And the legislature likewise will have to deal with him as it relates to money being wasted at a time when he's being governor. And I think it's very important that he looks at that. And I don't think it should be yesterday. I think it should have been day before yesterday, today and tomorrow.
So would it be your suggestion, too, that tomorrow when we get some results around here, maybe some fence mending, maybe some just good old-fashioned horse trading might be in order for the governor right now to make some friends, make some deals in the General Assembly?
No, I don't think they are the orders of business. I think the order of business is do what you're elected to do now. You're not concerned about the future. The people of Virginia are looking to what are you doing now? What have you done for them? What are you going to do for them? If you do those things well, you'll be measured by that, and your future will be secured by them. They'll remember you, but they'll remember you both ways if you don't.
Thanks so much. Great to see you. Appreciate your counsel tonight.
My pleasure.
Brad Bell, our Maryland Bureau Chief, standing by for us tonight with, we don't want to short the Free State here. We're paying a lot of attention to the Old Dominion, but there's some races in Maryland that are worth looking at. Hey, Brad.
Hey there, Dave. Yeah, look, we've been tracking what's going on in Maryland municipal elections, and just a few minutes ago, I learned the winner of one of the mayor's races that we are watching, and coming up, I'll have a live report.
And welcome back to our special coverage, election 2023, the midterms obviously. But you know, we've been talking a lot about Virginia, but now we need to move over to Maryland in Rockville. That's where they're watching results that will determine who will be the next mayor there.
7 News Maryland Bureau Chief Brad Bell is live there with the latest on the races he's tracking there in Maryland. Brad?
Yeah, look, the balance of power in the state legislature is not at stake tonight, but we are following these mayor's races, and specifically in Bowie, here in Rockville, and in Laurel. And just a few minutes ago, I got the unofficial results from the city of Laurel, where we are told Keith Sidnor has been elected mayor by a significant margin over 4 other candidates. Now, Mr. Sidnor is a current member of the city council. He has a background in the military and in law enforcement, and significantly in the last couple of days he was endorsed by outgoing Mayor Craig Moe. Mr. Moe has been in that office for more than 20 years, and whether or not that played a role, we do know that Mr. Sidnor got about 1,000 votes. His closest challenger, a man by the name of Martin Mitchell, also on the council, got 700 votes. So those are unofficial results. The city will make official results known tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We're waiting for results from the city of Bowie. And here in Rockville, pretty heavy turnout today. They conduct this election here by mail-in ballot, drop boxes, and we saw a steady line of people coming in. I talked to the clerk who's running the election just a little while ago. She told me they will not be making any preliminary announcements about results, so we really won't know here until the wee hours of the morning who has won this race. But I did get an opportunity to talk to the candidates, and Monique Ashton, a current member of the council, is running for mayor. You know, we're reporting on these mayor's races in these towns. They get generally less attention than the bigger races, the statewide races, but they are important. And this is what Monique Ashton has to say about why these races are important.
This election is going to chart the future of Rockville, right? And there are a number of big issues, from public safety to economic development to thinking about Rockville Town Center to how we take care of our seniors and our young people. That's why this is important.
So again, the next results we expect to be coming in from the city of Bowie, where Mayor Tim Adams has a challenger, Troy Stewart. We hope to have those results very soon. In Rockville, Brad Bell, 7 News.
Okay, Brad, thank you. In Fairfax, there are many important municipal races on the ballot, from chair of the Board of Supervisors to Commonwealth's attorney.
Our Mitch Blocker, he's joining us live in McLean at a watch party for Democrats in Fairfax. And Mitch, what can you tell us?
Yeah, guys, the celebration is on. They're feeling pretty good here. It is a RSVP event. They have about 300 RSVPs here, and I can tell you there's, I don't know, at least 200 people in this ballroom. The speakers are just in front of me, off to my left, and they're starting to declare victory. But we do know that we're expecting to hear from State's Attorney here in Fairfax, Steve Descano, at some point this evening, as well as County Supervisor Jeff McKay. Also, the many legislative winners, you can hear them cheering as one of them has taken the podium and declared victory from the State Senate. And Fairfax, widely thought and expected to be a blue wave. They have tons of signs up here saying keep Fairfax blue, and it appears that they feel that they are going to do that, although we're not calling any of these races. The issues that they continue to tout: education, abortion. These are two things that they continue to say that Democrats are going to be strong at and need to maintain control of the state legislature. In Virginia, they've been cheering as other results have come in from states all across the country, from Ohio, from Kentucky, and there are also 12 seats open for school board in Fairfax County, and those are also big and contentious. But we'll be here and bring you some of these speeches live as the celebration here in Fairfax continues. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Mitch. Yeah, we'll circle back as soon as we can get some of that podium sound. Still ahead for us, we'll hear from former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore. We'll be right back.
Hey, Nick's mic, check, 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 check.
We have seen people ready to hold the House and flip the Senate, and hold the House and flip the Senate, and elect a new school board in Loudoun County.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2.
Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4.
We have seen people ready to hold the House and flip the Senate, and hold the House and flip the Senate, and elect a new school board in Loudoun County.
That is the chant. Hold the House and flip the Senate. I'm not sure how he has a voice. He's been going nonstop for a couple weeks. That was Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin at a rally in Leesburg last night.
Almost sounds like he's going to drop a mixtape next with that as the chorus. Our Nick Minock is live in Ashburn, where Loudoun County residents voted on school board and board of supervisors candidates today. Nick?
Yeah, that's funny, Jonathan, Michelle. Right now we're in Ashburn at the Belmont Country Club, where Juan Pablo Segura, the Republican State Senate candidate for Senate District 31, is having an event here, watching the results trickle in. It appears right now Russet Perry is still ahead by at least a couple thousand votes the last time that I checked. And let's take a look at some of the local races here in Loudoun County. Let's start with the Loudoun County School Board in the Ashburn District. About 30 minutes ago, when you came to us here live in Ashburn, when we looked at these results, it looked like Dina Griffiths was up by a lot, but Harris Mahadavi, the incumbent, has closed in a little bit on her lead, but it still appears Dina Griffiths is leading the incumbent. And then we're going to go now to the Leesburg School Board race. That's Erica Ogadegbe versus Lauren Chernoff. Erica Ogadegbe is the incumbent. Lauren Chernoff is her challenger. Lauren Chernoff is an independent school board candidate. Erica Ogadegbe, Democratic endorsed. And Harris Mahadavi and Erica Ogadegbe are the only two incumbents running for re-election on this 9-member Loudoun County School Board that has been in the news for several years for a lot of different reasons. And it appears the two incumbents are down. Now, let's go to the Little River District, Loudoun County School Board. It appears that Samara Rashid has gained on Joe Smith, the Republican. And then let's take a look at the Catoctin District in Western Loudoun County. Carrie LaBelle is leading Megan Lockwood in that school board district. Let's take a look at the Sterling District. It appears right now the Democrat is leading Amy Riccardi, a Republican in the Sterling District. A lot of news there recently. That's where Parkview High School is, with all those fentanyl overdoses that the superintendent did not tell parents about for weeks. And let's look at the large Loudoun County School Board seat between Michael Rivera and Ann Donahue. It appears that Ann Donahue is leading her Republican challenger by a lot. And last night here in Loudoun County, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Earl Sears, and Jason Miyares held a Get Out the Vote rally. Here's what they said.
And hold the House and flip the Senate and elect a new school board in Loudoun County.
You have right now local elections. Local elections matter. First of all, are there any school board candidates or members here? Thank you. Thank you. But you also have Gary Katz, who's running against Phyllis Randall. Go out and vote for Gary as well, because local leadership matters.
Because we're going to bring in our school board candidates. We're going to show Phyllis, too.
And Sears was talking about Phyllis Randall, the chair of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. She's leading Gary Katz and independent Sam Croys at this very moment. We're going to have much more on these Board of Supervisors races, and we showed you that because we wanted to show you the governor, lieutenant governor, the attorney general put a lot of emphasis on local races. You know, they've been focused a lot on the Senate races, House races, but they had a lot of interest on these local races here in Loudoun County. Live in Ashburn, Nick Minock, 7 News.
Nick, thanks very much. Let's switch gears now and bring back Dave Lucas. You know, Dave, it's one of those things when you're talking about canary in the coal mine. It's still early. They're not calling enough races to give us an idea of the balance of power. When do you think this might wrap, or at least we'll have a better indication of what will happen?
I think in the next 45 minutes or so, we'll have a lot clearer picture, because you look at a lot of these races, and they're with 95, you know, anyway, down to like 86, 87%. That's a lot of the vote that's in right now. Now, particularly in the counties away from the metropolitan areas, where there just aren't that many voters, where you've got trend lines like that, then you can sort of count on what you're seeing as a partial result, maybe winding all the way through to the end. It's in the bigger places where you don't know where those outlying voter precincts are. Some of them can be in real strongholds, and that'll change what appears to be a close race just like that. We are, tonight, fortunate enough to have former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore as an analyst. Now, he was, of course, the 68th governor. He chaired the Republican National Committee. He was U.S. Ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And tonight, he is joining us. Governor, great to have you with us. Nice to see you
Thank
again.
you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Tell me what's better in your view, divided government or where you have one party in charge of you know, the governor's mansion, the House, and the Senate? It's probably easier that way, but what's better for Virginians in your view?
Well, it depends on whether Virginians have made up their minds that they want to move in a particular direction or not. If they're a little uncertain about the direction, they're going to maybe try to be voting a little more one way or the other, depending upon the district. If there's a consensus that you want to move in a particular direction, then you know, I think there's nothing wrong with having the governorship in both houses of the legislature, as Governor Youngkin wants to do if he wants to carry out his program. So it really comes down to the discussion of the issues leading up to the campaign and in the campaign.
What are you seeing tonight? Can you draw some sort of big strokes, big conclusions from all politics is local? Tip O'Neill told us that a long time ago, and I think he was right then, he's right now. But what are you looking at, and what are you seeing?
Well, look, Dave, you know, I'm looking at several things. There are a few Senate seats that I think that we were hoping would go Republican, that so far they are not. They're behind in 3 seats, including the one in my locality here. On the other hand, there's a House seat where we might very well pick up a House seat. The Republican candidate is ahead by 24 votes out of over 18,000 cast. So you can tell how close these races are.
Governor, how much of a bellwether is Virginia? I think people in my business like to say, well, you know, take a look at Virginia, because that'll give you an idea of where we are next year when we come up to the nationwide general election. But does that hold true necessarily, do you think?
Yeah, it could. Look, this is my initial thought, and that is, I think that we all, when this election is over, have to analyze exactly what happened with the abortion issue.
Yes.
The Democrats spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars defining the race as an abortion race. And the Republicans, I think, could have perhaps pivoted to a different issue. Governor Youngkin, for example, won on schools and accountability in the schools and parental rights. And we absolutely know that in Northern Virginia right now, we're seeing a great deal of crime, and crime is an issue everywhere in Virginia and across America. But those issues did not dominate because the Democrats spent so much money on the abortion issue, and the Republicans seem to have needed to respond to the abortion issue and lay out their position on the abortion issue. And now the question is, will this race adopt one side or the other? And we'll know that, I suppose, a little more by tomorrow.
Governor, I'm going to ask you one question that dovetails into that nicely, I think. How much should candidates be paying attention to their gut and the people who know where they are? It seems like if you looked at a lot of these campaigns, they were done by campaign consultants, and Republican spots all had the same talking points, and a lot of the Democratic spots had the same thing too. You don't talk over the voters' heads. It seems to me you really should be talking to the voters. Would you agree?
That's an interesting way of putting it. Because, look, I think what consultants and pollsters do is advise the candidate as to how the constituency feels. But at the same time, I think you're exactly right. The candidate has to actually believe in what he's saying, because the voters will pick up right away if the person's insincere and not genuine and not authentic. So, for example, when I ran on the car tax cut, I actually believed in the car tax cut. I believed it was the right thing for the public, and I think people believe that I believed it. So the question now is, you know, where are we in this race? And to your point, you know, we're going to have to wait and see. But it's pretty clear that the Democrats decided this was a race about abortion and were prepared to spend their money for it.
Former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore. Governor, great to see you. Thanks so much. We will talk again.
Thank you, Dave.
Great perspective there, Dave. Thank you. Let's take another look now at results in Senate District 27. That's located in Stafford and Spotsylvania counties.
Republican Tara Durant now facing Democrat Joel Griffin and Independent Monica Gary. Our Megan Clark live in Fredericksburg at Joel Griffin's watch party right now. And Megan, according to the numbers, he is trailing, and that's got him kind of tap down the mood at that place.
Jonathan, Michelle, I've been watching those numbers as well. It appears Griffin is trailing Republican candidate Tara Durant by several thousand votes. Those are the latest vote count numbers to come in tonight. Of course, that race not called yet. And we do know after following these races for months, these candidates have poured just millions of dollars into their efforts. You can see, though, here tonight, there's quite a bit of support here for Griffin. We were able to see him mingling with folks here at his campaign party this evening, taking pictures with folks and speaking with them. He was out at the polls until 7 o'clock tonight. We talked with him about an hour or so ago, and here's what he had to say about the feeling of support.
As a first-time candidate, I had to learn on the fly and move pretty quickly, but I've been supported by this community since the very beginning. So to have so many of them here with us tonight, it's really special.
Trailing Durant by several thousand votes, less than 80% of votes have been counted. However, Durant campaigning with Republican Lee Peters, who is running for the District 65 House of Delegates, and then campaigning here tonight with Griffin. Joshua Cole also running for that seat as a Democrat, and we're still waiting on results in that race as well. So stay with us. We will keep you updated throughout the night. Reporting live, Jonathan, Michelle, back to you.
All right, Megan, thank you. We want to go now to District 31, and that's where Russet Perry is speaking. Let's take a listen.
And that is all the hard work, and that's what wins this race tonight. So thank you, SD 31.
All right, so we just caught the tail end of Russet Perry thanking her supporters. The numbers right now, 53 to 47, so she's leading this one, but not declaring victory just yet. It appears that 95% of the precincts are reporting at this time.
All right, let's get out to Manassas right now. Christian Flores is out there. I will have that. There he is right there. Hey, Christian, what's going on out there now?
Well, it's a party right now here at the Prince William County Democrats Election Night Watch Party. We're getting a clearer picture of which candidates might be coming out on top, what their priorities are, and what that could mean for the balance of power in Virginia coming up after the break.
All right, welcome back. Let's head back out to Manassas. This time, let's take a look at the House of Delegates District 21 race. The district is located in Prince William County.
The Democratic candidate is Josh Thomas. The Republican is John Stirp. You can see some of the numbers, how they're coming in. Very tight race right here, but Thomas right now is leading 51% to 48%. 7 News' Christian Flores is joining us live in Manassas now with more on this race. Christian?
Yeah, things just got interesting in the last 15 to 20 minutes. Josh Thomas, the Democrat, actually declaring victory over John Stirrup. Now, of course, the AP hasn't called that race, so we're not calling that race quite yet, but he did send out a release. Now, this was an interesting race from the get-go because abortion really dictated some of the tone of this race. The Washington Post reporting back in August that John Stirrup said he would support a 100% ban on abortion. Josh Thomas running with that, but he's also prioritizing education, fully funding the schools, and paying teachers a little bit better, as well as dealing with cost of living and, of course, data centers, something that always comes up when you talk with Prince William County candidates. He was not the only one to declare victory. Danica Rome also declaring victory a few minutes before that for Senate District 30 over Bill Wolf. Now in this race, again, AP not reporting that, AP not calling this race, so we're not either, but Danica Rome is declaring herself the victor. She had about a 3 or 4 point lead at the last check. Danica Rome was really campaigning on infrastructure as well as feeding kids, as well as her own legislative history, pointing to bills that she was able to pass into law. Bill Wolf was really focused on his law enforcement background, how he could use that to help with public safety in this Senate district. Danica Rome also answering that, saying that in her time in the House of Delegates, she did vote to expand some gun safety laws as well. Now, we're also paying attention to House District 22. There it looks like Republican Ian Lovejoy is coming out on top. He has a pretty sizable lead at this point. Again, I don't believe the AP is calling that, but his lead has built as the time has gone on. He was really focused on data centers and tax cuts. Travis Nemhart, the Democrat, was also focused on data centers as well as public safety and abortion. So we're still just getting a better idea of all of these races. Again, AP not calling any of these races, but we are getting a little bit better of an idea of these races as the night goes on, as more and more of those votes get tallied. In the meantime, I do want to show you right before we leave just what we're looking at right now at this watch party. Definitely a lot of excitement in this room just a few minutes ago, but as soon as we get better idea of some of these races, we'll be sure to keep you updated. Reporting live in Manassas, Christian Flores, 7 News.
Kristen, thanks very much.
And this is a look at the watch party for Republican candidate Bill Wolf, also in Manassas, and we'll keep you posted on any updates. Do we want to listen in control room? Let's take a listen.
This is an incredible honor. Say what? Oh, yeah, how can I? So I won tonight, but the biggest winner is probably my campaign manager, Noah not only helped win this race, but won himself a job. So my hope very publicly is that you will join me as chief of staff in Richmond. You don't have to answer now, but thank you. Thumbs up. That's good. So Noah, our door knock army here, these folks are really the force behind it. These guys over here, these guys and gals, 25,000 doors. 25,000 doors. This victory isn't just mine. I knocked my share of doors and everything, but this was truly a collaborative and team effort, and we are just humbled beyond belief. So we look forward to serving you, and we have some other folks here who I know are excited servants of this community. I don't know what order we're going in, but since he's standing closer, I'm going to go with Tom Gordy. It is my honor to introduce to you for the first time Tom Gordy, Supervisor-elect.
Hey guys. So this is bittersweet for me. While I'm very excited about this victory, I was really hoping to go to the Board of Supervisors with Janine, with Carla, because we've got so much at stake in Brentsville, in the Brentsville district and in Prince William County. But I'm very...
All right, so at the top you just heard from Ian Lovejoy. He was actually declaring victory. That is in District 22 in Virginia. So the AP has yet to call that race, I believe, officially.
So we need to be calm.
Right.
Be careful with this.
So we don't have that yet, but that's the first word we're hearing now from the candidate.
Yeah, there's some races that are going to be very tight. We probably won't know the outcome for a bit more, but the big question, and this was going into the election, now it's going to be answered tonight, is the balance of power and the shift in the Commonwealth.
Tom Rousey is at the alert desk, keeping an eye on those numbers. Tom?
And we're getting a better picture at this point, Michelle and Jonathan, of who the winners might be, but still too close to call in both the Virginia Senate and the House. Here's the latest in the Senate. At this point, Democrats have won 17 seats to Republicans 14. These are called races. Still enough races out there to potentially tip the balance either way. And remember, this is one where Republicans have an advantage. They only have to tie. They need to win 20 of the 40 seats. If so, they've got the tie-breaking vote, which is Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears. Now, I checked the races that are still to be called. It seems like Democrats have a majority, or ahead, I should say, in a majority of them. So at this point, you'd rather be a Democrat than a Republican when it comes to the Senate, but it is not over yet. I will caution, especially since Republicans do have that advantage. Democrats currently do control the Virginia Senate. Now, over here in the House, Democrats have opened up a lead. 42 seats have been called for them to 32 for Republicans. Now, this is one where there is no tie-breaking vote, so both parties want 51. Democrats obviously much closer at this point. Now, that said, I have looked through, and a majority of the races yet to be called, well, Republicans are ahead in them. So the Republicans not out of this yet. Republicans currently control the House. So these are the latest numbers that we have, and we're going to keep filling this in as more and more races are called. Michelle.
Sounds good, Tom. Very busy night ahead. Thank you.
There's a lot up for grabs right now, and still some of it's too close to call. Some of the races, though, that were expected, it's happening. The ones that are actually sort of lying in the balance with millions of dollars that poured into Virginia for people trying to get their voice out there. Endless commercials, road signs everywhere. The question is, did it pay off for them tonight? We'll have to get that answer for you.
And depending on the way that this picture plays out, will determine whether the governor can move forward with his conservative agenda. That is what he's been calling for, so that they could rule, Republicans could rule both chambers. We'll see if that happens tonight.
Yeah, the governor went hoarse, saying he would rather have people working with him as opposed to against him. We'll have much more coverage on our special election coverage for you tonight. More coming up right after this.
This is a 7 News Your Voice, Your Vote 2023 Election Night Special.
Thanks for joining us. This is Your Voice, Your Vote Election Night 2023 special. I'm Jonathan Elias.
And I'm Michelle Marsh, and we're joined tonight by anchor Dave Lucas and our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman.
And tonight we're watching results from local races in Maryland, but the big focus is in Virginia. That's where all 140 seats are up for grabs in the state House and the Senate.
And we do have live team coverage in Maryland and at some of the most hotly contested races in Virginia. But first, let's take a look at some results so far, and we begin with what might be the most expensive Senate race in Virginia. Russet Perry and Juan Pablo Segura had been neck and neck. Perry appears to have opened up a lead in the past couple of hours with 53%.
And staying in Loudoun County, the Commonwealth's Attorney Office, they could see some changes there. Bob Anderson right now is leading the incumbent Buddha Bibarai with over 95% of the vote in. Bibarai eked out a less than 3,000 vote win back when she ran for office the first time. And Danica Roem also confident that she is going to win in the Senate District 30. That is a step up for her from the House of Delegates. That's if she holds this lead.
And I believe Danica Roem is about to speak right now. Let's go to our Christian Flores. Christian?
Yeah, right now I'm off camera. I'm off camera right now because we're waiting for Danica Roem to speak. But the AP has just projected her to be the winner of Senate District 30. This was a race a lot of people, including national party leaders, had their eye on. And the delegate now crosses over the hall in Richmond from the House of Delegates to the state Senate. Right now, Senator Jeremy Pike is introducing her. It's getting loud right here. A lot of happy voters here, and let's take a listen to what she has to say.
Let me ask y'all a question. If you volunteered for a campaign, if you knocked doors, made phone calls, sent texts, donated money, sent postcards, did the work, raise your hand. All right, for all the cameras, for everyone else, keep those hands up. This is who won this campaign. I did my part, and you all did yours. We win when we win together. We ran together to win together, to serve together. And I am so grateful above all for this, that our community came together at a time. Hey y'all in the back, bring it down for just a second. I want to tell y'all something. All right. You all remember in 2017, when we changed what was possible in American politics together, when we defeated the self-described chief homophobe of Virginia to elect this country's first out-of-state trans-state legislator in the country. 6 years later, they doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on transphobia as their closing message in this race. They sent more than 30 negative mailers against me in this race. They did everything transphobic, and then they doubled it, and they tripled it, and they quadrupled it, and we won. I want to make a point here that our message of fixing roads, feeding kids, protecting our land, and making Virginia a more inclusive Commonwealth where no matter what you look like, where you come from, how you worship if you do, or who you love, you are welcomed, celebrated, respected, and protected because of who you are, not despite it, and not for a discriminatory politician tell you you're supposed to be.
Victory speech there from Danica Roem, becoming the Commonwealth's first openly transgender state senator. This is a big win, and it's also the first transgender in the South. So for those reasons and many more, she is defeating Fairfax County Police Detective Bill Wolf as a conservative Republican. So that is the big headline coming out of that race.
And the other big headline is watching the balance of power for every seat that's gained by a Democrat or a Republican. What does that do for the Commonwealth? Let's bring in now Dave Lucas to talk a little bit about that. And, you know, are we seeing any upsets or surprises so far?
I'm not seeing, there are no jaw-dropping surprises, but I am very interested in what Danica Roem just had to say there. And I would like to bring in, if I can, now Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, who is kind of our go-to guy at the University of Mary Washington. Doctor, I don't know if you could hear Danica Roem there, but she did just claim victory in her race. And a very interesting thing, of course, she's a groundbreaker, if you will, the first trans candidate to win in the state of Virginia and to maybe in many places across the country. She talked about anti-trans forces in this election, so that she said doubled, tripled maybe even their spending to try and defeat her. But she then cited sort of the traditional things that an incumbent would, you know, better roads, better schools. These data centers have become real controversial things. It's interesting to me how roles can switch sometimes. She was taking the sort of traditional candidate, you know, these are the kitchen table issues that a lot of people are worried about, not so much the big picture. It's not abortion, it's not transphobia, it's things like that. She said you can win on those kinds of issues, and I think that's a very interesting change, certainly in that district, but one that probably has a lot of resonance across the state. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. When you look at Delegate Rome in her years in the lower chamber, you really see somebody very focused on these street level issues. A candidate, an incumbent, and now a senator-elect who really focused on those issues that are really going to connect with people. I think that this is something you don't see a lot of right now in politics. You know, I think a lot of campaigns this election cycle really focused on, you know, politics as a national dynamic. Yes. You know, talking about abortion, talking about the Supreme Court ruling, talking about the risk that Donald Trump poses to the country, or Joe Biden does. Those kinds of conversations will bring you a significant number of voters, to be sure, but it's also true that to get across the finish line, you really do want to be a very focused local candidate, and that's what we see as the successful strategy of this senator-elect.
I asked former Governor Jim Gilmore about that very thing, and he echoed very much what you had to say right there, that this is you run where you are. Don't try and ascribe more importance or sort of, you know, greater ideas to whatever it is that you're doing. If roads need to be fixed, if taxes are an issue, if schools are a problem, if crime is everywhere, run on the things that people immediately associate with their lives, not these sort of big ephemeral notions, and you'll win. I think we're seeing that.
Absolutely. It's important to recognize too that you need to be the genuine article as a candidate. Right. I think that one of the challenges that a lot of Republicans faced on this abortion question was the extent to which people historically had said that they were 100% pro-life, and now all of a sudden they're talking about a 15-week ban, which is not fully pro-life. That's some sort of compromise that may make sense with respect to where the public opinion is in their district, but it doesn't represent what these candidates might have said in the past historically. And so when you're starting to pivot for purposes of political expediency, you basically create two problems for yourself as a candidate. One, the people who see the pivot can't trust you, and two, the people who see the pivot don't believe it. The people you're trying to reach, they think, oh, you're just saying that to win an election. And so I think that one of the things that Senator-elect Rome has to tell a lot of voters and a lot of other candidates who are looking at this race as a successful race in a challenging environment is this issue of being the candidate focused on those kinds of issues with a consistency with respect to local concerns that really transcends other issues that people might use against the candidate.
Dr. Stephen Farnsworth over at the University of Mary Washington, and you will not find, frankly, a sharper-eyed view of what's going on in Virginia politics than his. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, thanks very much for coming up for us. We're going to take another look at the current balance of power in Virginia.
But first, here are some more results coming in.
Well, tonight's results could shift the balance of power in Virginia's General Assembly.
And our Tom Rousey is live at the Alert Desk with a closer look at where things stand. Tom, we just heard Danica Roem declare victory, so we're starting to fill in more of this picture tonight.
And she is one of the reasons, Michelle, that Democrats at this point very close to at least a tie in the Virginia Senate. However, they need more than a tie because Republicans would have a tie-breaking vote. 19 seats have been called for Democrats at this point in the Senate. 15 for Republicans, 40 total up for grabs. So if Democrats can get 2 more, they will hold the majority in the Senate. Again, though, Republicans would have a tie-breaking vote, so they only need to win 5. I looked at the races still to be called. Looks about half and half at this point. So Democrats seem in a good position to hold on to the Virginia Senate, which they currently have a slim majority in. Too close to call it for sure yet, I will say. Now, as far as the House of Delegates, Democrats well up at this point. 44 seats called for them, 32 for Republicans. Now, 100 seats in the House of Delegates. No tie-breaking vote in this one, so each party really needs 51. Obviously, Republicans look further away at this point. However, I did go through the races still to be called, and a clear majority have Republicans in the lead at this point. So Republicans, it's looking tough for them, but they are probably going to narrow this margin as more races are called. So again, we're going to keep monitoring this. Let me check something right here. Okay, nothing's been called in the last minute. So these are the latest numbers right here. Still too early to call either the Senate or the House, but Democrats are getting close in the Senate at this point, Jonathan.
Man, tonight, I know you're juggling a lot, keeping track of all those seats. I was wondering if either party has flipped a seat so far.
That has happened. Remember, there's been a lot of redistricting at this point, so some of the districts don't look like they did 2 years ago, 4 years ago, and in some cases incumbents were in the same thing, so it kind of created politically a mess, although some would certainly argue since they were drawn differently and it wasn't the legislators that drew them, that's a good thing for democracy, but it did create a lot of, strange situations where you had multiple incumbents in a district. So yes, seats have flipped at this point, but it's a little tough to compare them with 4 years ago because some of these districts look different than 4 years ago.
Good way of putting it, Tom. Thanks very much for that. So a lot at stake. We know that what happens tonight could be a big indication of what could happen nationwide.
Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman. And Scott, tell us more about what we're seeing tonight. Any surprises so far?
Not a major surprise. Ohio protecting the rights for women to have abortion. That stuck, and we knew that that was probably going to be the case. Legalizing of marijuana, also something that you could have predicted. And Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, holding on to that seat, despite being a Democrat in a Republican state. So a lot of people, as we've talked about throughout the evening, especially behind the scenes here, is whether or not Virginia portends what will happen in 2024. And Jonathan, you talked about the fact that with so much money being poured into and so much effort, as Michelle, you've also discussed, being focused on abortion in the Commonwealth, does that really mean much? And we heard from former Governor Jim Gilmore say, look at the millions and millions of dollars have been spent. Right. But you also asked about priorities, voter priorities. Here are the top 4 nationally: economy, inflation, healthcare, and education. What you're not hearing there is abortion and crime. So take into consideration, move back to some of the polling data that we've seen. 73% of people right now think that the country is headed in the wrong direction overall.
Right.
That's
a lot.
It's a big, big number. And consider how much it's gone up. It was 65% at the beginning of this calendar year. So as you see that level of dissatisfaction grow, now that's something that's a little more applicable as we look forward to 2024, a general election, a potential Biden-Trump rematch.
So does that mean that the Republicans had the momentum, they had the upper hand, the advantage going into tonight, and if we don't see a victorious night for them, that's something to worry about?
It may be something to worry about, but you're right. I would think that if you're basing a futuristic look on those issues and that dissatisfaction with how the country is being run, especially economically, right? Bidenomics has fallen flat with a lot of people. Even Democrats aren't thrilled with what's going on. That yes, that's difficult for Democrats to try and spin, but also keep in mind that Republicans dodged a big bullet by not having a government shutdown, okay? Because that's an easy thing to blame them with.
I think at this point people blame both parties with their government because we hear about it every 6 months.
They do, but Republicans would have suffered maybe a little bit more as being the blockade in the House. So all of these things are important. They're a little bit of a looking glass, but again, as I mentioned earlier in the night, We're 1 year out from a general election. A lot will happen between now and then.
And on the national scope, Virginia seems to be more like a petri dish. Everybody else on the sidelines from other states and even nationally are looking at this saying, all right, you're pouring all the money to control the narrative and making abortion your primary focus. When in voters' minds, that's not high on their list. But you controlling the narrative and spending that kind of money, that's what you're trying to do to steer voters in a certain direction.
Well,
did it work is the question.
Well, look at history. So you have Glenn Youngkin, a Republican who won. But this is also a state that Biden carried, right? He did pretty well. You look at presidential elections. The last 4 presidential elections in Virginia, voters have turned for Democrats. It was 8 presidential elections preceding that all in a row for Republicans.
Right.
It is as purple as it gets in many respects. And so that's why, again, it's fun, and Dave Lucas talked about this. We love to say, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean for the future?
Right.
And it's really difficult to assign wins and losses from Virginia to what's happening nationally. I think that abortion, while we've revisited this topic multiple times, does let you know, though, that now you have 7 states since Roe v. Wade was overturned, 7 states that have then voted, including many Republican ones, to protect abortion rights.
Interesting.
Biden carried the state by 10 points, and I think you typically see that backlash where then you saw Glenn Youngkin take over as governor. So you see that.
And he made it local,
switch,
right?
yeah. Yes.
National politics, but all politics is local. And
Exactly.
what did he campaigned on? What's parents' rights in schools?
Right.
All of those type of hyper-local issues. That's where you can win.
All right, Scott Thuma, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks very much. Now we're going to head back to Loudoun County, and that's where there is a possible upset now in the Ashburn School Board race.
7 News' Nick Minach is live in Ashburn. Nick, what's the latest there?
Well, hey, look, Harris Mahadavi is the vice chair of the Loudoun County School Board. He's been around for a lot of the controversies that we've seen make national headlines, from school sexual assaults to student walkouts about bathroom and locker room and shower policies, Policy 8040, to poor reading and math scores and fentanyl overdoses. And right now, his challenger is leading him by just less than 200 votes, and he's one of 2 incumbents who are seeking re-election. The other, Erica Ogadegbe, appears to be losing to her challenger as well. And joining me live right now is Dina Griffiths, who is running against Harris Mahadavi. You are about a couple hundred votes ahead right now. There's still some votes, not many, but some votes left to be counted, those provisional ballots. But what's your reaction right now? Were you expecting to win?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes, I was expecting to win because we've had 4 years of chaos. We need to get on there and fix what's been happening for the last 4 years. Basically what you had mentioned, the bathroom issues, the fentanyl crisis. We need to get back to basics. We need to get back to math, English, science, history, academic excellence, really. So I'm not surprised that it's close, but I think I will prevail.
Well, this is a blue district. Harris Mahadavi, I believe, in 2019 won this district by about 1,000 votes in 2019, and now he's behind 200 votes. You're a Republican-endorsed school board candidate. How did
listen to students in the schools? So it was a combination of a lot of things that are bringing us to this point.
And this is potentially a moment of celebration for you, but there are some real issues in the schools right now. There's school safety issues. You have the fentanyl overdoses.
Yes.
You know, we were asking school board members last week, do they think Dr. Aaron Spence should resign as superintendent, on how he handled those overdoses? What are your thoughts?
I'd like to evaluate exactly what they knew when they knew it. I personally did not like the messaging from LCPS. I would like it to change, and that's something I will work to do, to change the messaging. I don't think everything is considered a medical emergency. So that'll all be evaluated.
And when you mention medical emergency, for viewers watching this, what happens a lot of the time is when there's overdoses in Loudoun County Public Schools, an alert is sent to parents that says there's been a medical emergency at school. It's not specific, hey, there's been an overdose at school. So that's what you're referring to right there. You think the alert should say there's been a fentanyl overdose today.
I think it's important for the parents to know about any overdoses, because especially when you're dealing with fentanyl, there's a leftover residue in the air. It could be anywhere. A student can touch it, breathe it in. That affects everybody. That is not just a broken arm or an allergic reaction. So I think classifying as a medical emergency is not the way to classify it.
Well, Dina Griffiths, there's a couple 100 more votes to count. You're ahead right now, leading. Harris Mahdavi, thank you for joining 7 News. We'll catch up with you soon. And with this fentanyl issue, one other issue of importance is if there's fentanyl in high schools, a lot of the school grounds around high schools include elementary schools and middle schools. And so if there's pills on the ground, let's say those little blue pills, it's really important for the public to know about this. And this is, of course, potentially a turning point in this race for Loudoun County School Board. We'll go back to you.
All right, Nick, thank you. Brad Bell, live for us in Maryland with the latest on the mayoral races there. Brad.
Yeah, Scott Thuman said it a moment ago, all politics is local. We are digging into the local races. Coming up, you're going to hear the winner, the unofficial winner of the race for mayor in Laurel.
Back to our continuing coverage here of our special election coverage. Let's move over to Maryland now in Rockville. That's where we're watching results that will determine who will be the next mayor there.
7 News' Brad Bell is live there with the latest on this race and other mayoral races there in Maryland. Brad?
Yeah, so here in Rockville, they do their election now with mail-in ballots and drop boxes, and they didn't do any counting in advance. So they expected to get some pretty good turnout. All of the counting taking place after 8 p.m. We're told we're not going to have results here in Rockville until probably the wee hours of the morning. Bowie. We expect to get results from Bowie quite soon, but we haven't heard there. They too are electing, just like here in Rockville, mayor and council. But in the city of Laurel, the turnout is much lower, about 2,000 voters in total, and they did release their results. They're electing mayor and city council, and the mayor there is replacing Craig Moe. Craig Moe's been the mayor for more than 20 years, and so the winner in Laurel, unofficial winner, is Keith Sidnor. He is a current member of the town council. He is a guy with a military and law enforcement background, and I had an opportunity to speak to him via FaceTime just a little while ago about what he has in mind during his time in office. The same guy has been mayor there for a very long time. What's going to change?
We're going to continue to develop our city and smart development. You know, we're going to continue to grow economic. We're going to bring in small business to our city, create jobs, hire lower residents. We're going to give first-time home buyers an incentive to buy homes inside the city of Laurel to make a certain income. So we're going to, I have a platform for all about it. We're an all-inclusive city, and we're going to lead that way.
And so he got about 1,000 votes, and the next closest finisher, there were 5 people running for mayor. It's a guy named Martin Mitchell, also a member of the council. Now, this race has gotten really contentious in the last several days because the current mayor put out his endorsements. He said he wasn't going to do that, but he endorsed Keith Sidnor, and he blasted Martin Mitchell and said that Martin Mitchell really wasn't qualified to become mayor. Whether or not that had any role in this, it was a convincing victory for Mr. Sidnor. And you heard what he said. He's going to carry on, and he was seen sort of as the establishment choice in that community. So again, we are waiting for results from the city of Bowie. Incumbent Tim Adams there is up against a challenger by the name of Troy Stewart, and we hope to have those results very soon. Here in Rockville, the biggest of the municipalities around here, again, it's going to be quite some time before we know who the winners are. In Rockville, Brad Bell, 7 News.
Brad Bell using technology to his advantage with that live interview. Thank you, Brad. Still ahead, election night also continues in Virginia. Of course, we'll have the latest on races in the Commonwealth next.
Ask you about the campaign. Okay. Yeah, mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back at 10:30. Let's head back out now to Manassas, where our Christian Flores is live.
Yeah, he's covering House District 21. Christian, how goes it out there?
Yeah, right now we're about to speak with Democratic candidate Josh Thomas. He has the lead so far in this race. It hasn't been called yet, but he does have the lead right now. Josh, thank you for talking with us. First of all, just what are you going through right now with this close for race?
I mean, absolutely, we're ecstatic. Everyone's having a good time here, but we don't do any contest hasn't been called yet, so we're anxiously awaiting that final confirmation. But people are elated because this campaign was about working families, and there are a lot of working families here who are excited for Democrats to deliver.
Now, I know we said that this race is too close to call. If this result stands and you do get sent to Richmond, what are your top priorities once you get to the House of Delegates?
Yeah, exactly what we've been talking about this whole campaign, which is delivering for working families. Things like affordable housing. We want to see a dramatic increase in low-income housing tax credits here in Virginia, which is an outstanding program that has bipartisan support. We also want to see reform for prescription drugs so our seniors can afford their medications that they need. And of course, it's northern to Virginia, so we got to talk about transportation. Make sure those working families can get to and from work easily.
You know, your opponent, John Sturb, he's a former member of the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. His campaign largely was on public safety. He did say you were defund the police. I know I asked you this before, but what's your response to him saying you're pro defund the police and that public safety would be an issue with you if you were to go to Richmond?
I think public safety was rightly an issue. We do have a little bit of a petty crime problem that's rising in western Prince William County, but at the same time, we're the only campaign that talked about real meaningful solutions, things like allowing our police to unionize, but also making sure our police have the resources they need to do the job, and his campaign has never talked about that. It was all scare tactics, whereas we provide real solutions.
You know, what role did your Marine Corps background play in this race, and what do you think it'll play should you hold on to this result and represent Prince William County in the House of Delegates?
Well, I think after today's long trudge to Election Day, certainly stamina was at play here, but I think also being able to accomplish a mission over a long period of time. You know, I'm no stranger to a long 18-month workup, deploying to Afghanistan. I think that really resonated here. One foot in front of the other, one door in front of the other, one conversation after another, and we're seeing some of those results tonight.
And last question, I know we have a close race here. Just what are the jitters for the rest of the night as you wait for the AP to call this race? What are the jitters going through you right now?
You know, again, nothing real jittery, just taking in the information as it comes at a time. Again, having served in Afghanistan, I try to keep a cool head and just take the information as I see it, but we're feeling good, we feel positive.
All right, thank you very much, Josh. Again, that was Josh Thomas with House District 21, the Democratic candidate for House District 21. He does have a lead right now. The AP hasn't called it quite yet, so as a result, we're going to be paying close attention to. We've also been paying close attention to House District 22, where Republican Ian Lovejoy looks like he has a lead. And then, of course, Senate District 30, where we just heard Danica Rome speak at the top of this hour. The AP declaring her the winner not that long ago of this race. So Democrats looking like they're in a good position to hold on to their majority in the Senate. We're still waiting to figure out what things will look like in the House, but for right now, we're going to continue paying attention to these races, and we'll send it back to you in the studio. Reporting live from Manassas, Christian Flores, 7 News.
Christian, thanks very much. You know, going into any election cycle, you always hear the hyperbole of some of the pundits saying we're going to have a wave this way, a blue wave, a red wave, whatever it is. Going into this one, a lot of people thought Virginia was going to be the canary in the coal mine, that, you know, we're going to maybe flop the House and the Senate are both going to go red. And right now, it doesn't appear that that's happening. So it's going to be either a nail biter to the end to see what happens, or we end up with exactly what we started with before the night got started.
But every time we go to Tom Rousey, he gives us a clearer indication of what is happening. So let's check in with Tom. He's at the alert desk. What are you seeing now, Tom?
Well, Michelle, in some ways this time it's going to get less clear, and I'll explain why. You know, Russet Perry, her race was just called over there in Loudoun County. That means Democrats have clinched at least a tie in the Virginia Senate. 20 called races. So things look bad for Republicans, right? Well, not so fast. I've looked at the 4 outstanding races. In 2 of them, Republicans have a big lead, and they may be called before too long for Republicans. The other 2, at this point, the Democrat has a razor-thin lead, and I mean razor-thin. The other 2, it's 1% or less. The Democrat is ahead. So Republicans not out of this yet, even though it looks bad for them. They at least have a chance in the 4 remaining seats, and a very good chance in 2 of them. And again, 2 Democrats narrowly ahead. And Democrats, they've got to get that 21, because if Republicans get 20, they have the tie-breaking vote from Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, who is a Republican. Now, in the House, Democrats, things also looking good for them here. 44 called for them at this point to 33 for Republicans. They each need to get to 51 because there's no tie-breaking vote in the House. So at this point, it looks like the Democrats are in better shape. However, once again, I went through the outstanding races. Republicans do have a lead in most of them. That said, I'm not sure it's going to be enough. To be honest with you, in some ways, things are looking worse for the Republicans in the House at this point than the Senate. Of course, currently, as we entered tonight, Republicans led the House narrowly, and Democrats led the Senate narrowly. At this point, looks like Republicans could lose the House, but it's too early to say that. And again, the Senate getting very interesting because Democrats at this point looking like they might hold the same lead they did as we went into the night, but they might actually lose a seat or 2 or potentially lose the Senate. So again, all I can say is stay tuned, Jonathan and Michelle.
You know, and I had a question for you, Tom, because earlier you made the great point of the redistricting that took place. So basically we're looking at new districts, but we're also still looking at incumbents. And I'm curious if there's been any flips with some of the incumbents losing their position tonight. Have we seen any of that?
No, I'm looking through this. I don't want to give you an answer because I'm not 100% sure on all these races. Some incumbents lost before we ever got to tonight. Some retired because, as we mentioned, the redistricting that went on, some of the incumbents just said, you know what, I'm not running in my new district, or I'm not running in my old district because it's totally changed. In some cases, there were two incumbents together in districts because of the redistricting. So it created a situation where there was some open seats that maybe wouldn't have been open seats in the past. And in other cases, some incumbents chose to retire or lost in the primaries because they had to run against other incumbents in some cases, Jonathan. So I'll go through and try to be able to answer that question better for you. But at this point, I can say the chaos, a lot of it even occurred before tonight.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. I think the whole redistricting did kind of throw a wrench in the works for a lot of folks, and watching for any flips is going to be a tough one to gauge. Tom, thanks very much for that.
A hard reset, whole new ball game.
Exactly.
Choose your cliche, right?
Yeah. Well, our special election coverage will continue well, no, let's go over to Dave Lucas. Dave, talk to us about what's going on as far as what we're seeing in Virginia right now, because again, when I was talking about the waves, the pundits, they often get it wrong.
We sometimes are prophets without honor. You know, there's no question about that. I want to point out something to you right now, if you'll allow me. The Washington Post picked 5 races in the Senate, 5 races in the House as the races to watch. Well, when it turns out to be the Virginia House, they're pretty good on this. Listen, one of the 5 is in District 21, where Josh Thomas is up by 900 votes. That would be a pickup. That's an open seat. That would be a pickup for the Democrats. In District 57, Susanna Gibson is up by 34 votes, and only 80% of the votes counted there. So that's still very much up for grabs in Henrico County. In District 65, Joshua Cole, the Democrat, up by 240 votes, 94% of those votes cast. That's still up for grabs. In District 82, down in the Petersburg area, what they're calling the Battle of the Kimberleys, it's Kimberly Taylor versus Kimberly Pope Adams. Democrat Kimberly Pope Adams up by 700 votes, but only 86% of the vote counted there. That's still very much up for grabs. And then in District 97 in Virginia Beach, Karen Greenhall, the Republican, is up by 400 votes with only 57% of the votes counted. We could be here longer than we thought we were going to be here, I think, when tonight is all over, just because there are these races to watch in places that are very close. And that may wind up being the difference when all the votes are counted at some point, probably later tonight. So I just wanted to bring those 5 races to you in the House, because that may very well be the battleground, if we can. Let's bring in our expert here, Dr. Farnsworth, who's with us again. Those 5 races. Make of that what you will, but when we're trying to sort of divine the megatrends here, it's pretty hard, because there are a lot of races that are still very close, and some places where the votes take longer to get counted.
Well, that's absolutely the case. This is a process that takes a little bit of time, and people have to be patient, particularly when the results are, as you say, sometimes 2 digits or even low 3 digits. We still have votes to be counted. There's still provisional ballots. In some cases, people registered today to vote, and that can complicate things too, to make sure that those are ballots that are certified.
We've been watching this for a while. Do you have any take-home messages so far? There have been pickups on both sides. It was close to begin with, and it is still close now. Should Richmond sort of get used to being divided government and very closely divided government?
Well, I think that's going to be one of the things that we can expect. It seems likely that the Democrats will end up with at least 1 chamber, perhaps 2, when all the counting is done. When you look at the races where they're ahead. And so the governor is going to have the 2 years coming forward that may feel a lot like the 2 years that he just had. A lot of legislative initiatives on his part blocked by what Democrats called the brick wall. All indications are that there's going to be some kind of a brick wall, maybe in the House, maybe in the Senate, maybe both places going forward. And so this is going to be a real challenge, I think. It's important to realize that with all of the new district lines and all of the competition in politics today, we don't have that many moderates in Virginia anymore. I mean, if you and I were having this conversation 15 years ago or 10 years ago, we'd be talking about Democrats who might vote with Republicans sometimes, Republicans who might vote with Democrats sometimes. Now you're looking at two caucuses, Democrats and Republicans, that are much more consistent, that are much more cohesive. And so it's going to be much harder for a governor today going forward to peel off voters the way that, say, a Mark Warner could back in his day.
Isn't that very much a mirror, do you think, of what we're seeing in the halls of Congress right now, and maybe politics in general, that there are camps and not an awful lot of folks in the middle?
Yeah, I think I've been talking about this in my research and in my public discussion for a long time. What we are seeing is the Washingtonization of Virginia politics. In the old days, you had moderates of both parties that told the extremists what the law was going to be, but that's not true anymore. You now have your team and you now have the other team, and depending on which team is in power, you basically get 100% of what you want if the controls of power all under one party, or you get 100% gridlock if that's not the case. It's just like Congress. And so if you like Congress, you'll like Richmond.
All right, if that's, we can sort of take that as an article of faith. That's what it's going to be like in the General Assembly. This is, it occurs to me, an opportunity for the governor, too, to be sort of the, if not the peacemaker, the deal maker. Work across both sides of the aisle. If you've got an agenda that you want to get through, and eventually he's going to have to get that budget passed that goes across the end of his term, now might be a good time to do that and to work not just with the Republicans but with the Democrats as well.
Well, the good time to have done that would actually have been when he first took office. People weren't sure what to make of him because, of course, he hadn't had a period of time in public life as a member of the state legislature or Congress or anything. So he was something of a blank slate, and he could have been, as a new governor, more aggressive with respect to outreach because there was a Democratic Senate majority that he faced from day one of his governorship. But now, he's made enemies, and any governor who's been in office 2 years has a record now, and that record may or may not be successful. But it doesn't seem likely that the Democrats would be all that interested in an olive branch in year 3 of the governorship. They're probably just as soon wait for the next governor's election and hope for a Democrat to be in place coming that next one in line.
And Steve, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. We're going to take a break. Back with more numbers, more results, and more analysis after this.
This is a 7 News Your Voice, Your Vote 2023 Election Night Special.
7 News bringing you live election coverage, tracking the big races in Virginia that could change the balance of power in Richmond.
We're also watching some local mayoral races in Maryland. Let's take a look now at some of the results so far. We're going to begin with State Senate District 31. That's where Democrat Russell Perry is the projected winner over Republican Juan Pablo Segura. A lot of money in this race. Perry just spoke.
The message is the people we want to elect, the people we want to help make decisions are our servants, our public servants, our people who put other people first, people just like these gentlemen that I'm up here with tonight. So thank you to everyone here. Thank you to all my friends who are like my family.
Now to Senate District 30, Democrat Danica Rome appears to have defeated Republican Bill Wolf. Here's what she had to say.
We win when we win together. We ran together to win together, to serve together. And I am so grateful above all for this, that our community came together.
7 News will be back at 11 o'clock. Coverage continues, though, for you on 24/7 News.
All right, as we continue on WJLA 24/7 News, we want to head back to Manassas.
Yeah, before we head there, though, we were just showing some numbers, and you can see some of these races are very close right now. That's why we don't have the definitive answer as to how the play is going to be for who has control over both the Assembly and the delegates, House of Delegates, and the Senate. Not yet. But Josh Thomas is the Democrat candidate. John Stirrup is the Republican. And let's get over to Christian Flores right now to talk to him about how things, they're already breaking down the party behind you. Is everybody going home?
Yeah, it looks like it because the Democrats here at this watch party look like they got the news that they wanted to tonight, learning that the AP had projected Danica Rome winning Senate District 30 and then Josh Thomas looking like he was pulling ahead in House District 21. We actually just spoke with Thomas, a Marine Corps veteran, just a few minutes ago. He said that his top priority, and something that he promised in his campaign and wants to do day one in the House of Delegates, is focus on education and controlling rising cost of living. So that was something that he really campaigned on, as well as abortion, making sure that he could preserve the current state law, which bans abortion after 26 weeks and 6 days. His opponent, the Washington Post, obtained a recording saying that John Stirrup supported a 100% ban on abortion. So that was something that was a major point in this campaign. Switching over to Senate District 30, we heard from Danica Rome at the top of the hour. She's moving from the House of Delegates over to the state Senate, and throughout the campaign, she was touting her history in legislating back in the House of Delegates, pointing to how many bills that she passed with bipartisan support, saying that's something that she wants to continue, especially when it comes to improving the roads here in Prince William County, as well as making sure they expand free school lunches for children all across the state. So these are races that we've been paying attention to all night long. We'll have more tonight at 11. Reporting live from Manassas, Christian Flores, 7 News.
All right, Christian, thanks very much. And the one thing we are keeping an eye on, I wish we had a better answer and could narrow it down for you, is the balance of power in Richmond. Is there going to be a shift in the Commonwealth?
I know you're going to have to stay up late to find out that answer. Tom Rousey is joining us now with a closer look. We're starting off with the Senate. Looks like those numbers just changed since the last time we saw you.
Well, it's 20 to 16 Democrats, so Democrats have clinched at least a tie. However, they need more than that. The Republicans actually have somewhat of an advantage here because if they can win the last 4 seats that are still out there, if they tie the Democrats, they have the tie-breaking vote. So that's where we're at in the Senate. I was looking through the races. I don't think this is over yet. I think in a couple of them, Republicans no doubt are going to win, and then a couple others are very, very close at this point. So this is not as over as this may make it seem because Democrats desperately need that number 21. Currently, they hold a 22 to 18 majority in the Senate. I think it's very possible that they may lose at least a seat, but the big thing is they need one more. They just need one more, and then they will have control of the Virginia Senate. Here in the House, Democrats are close once again, but they need 5 more seats. They need 51 to have control. Republicans behind at this point, but again, Republicans do seem to be ahead in most of the outstanding races, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to maintain their majority in the House, because unlike in the Senate, where Democrats are currently in control, in the House, Republicans are currently up 52 to 48. I think they almost certainly will not reach 52, but they're really trying to reach at least 51 for a majority, or at least 50 for a tie, which would lead to some sort of power sharing agreement in the House of Delegates. Live in the newsroom, I'm Tom Rousey, 7 News.
All right, Tom, thanks very much for that.
All right, let's check in with our Megan Clark and get the latest from her watch party. Megan?
Well, Jonathan and Michelle, some updates here tonight. No races have been called, but we do have some announcements from these candidates. Now, in the Senate 27 race, the race has not been called, but around 90% of the vote has been counted. Democrat Joel Griffin trailing Republican Tara Durant by several thousand votes. He gave an impromptu speech telling the crowd he really hopes to know more tomorrow and not conceding tonight. However, House of Delegates in the District 65 race, candidate Joshua Cole made a speech declaring victory over his Republican candidate, challenger and candidate Lee Peters, although that race has also not been called. Some of those issues, of course, abortion also on the front lines here of these races. Again, neither race called. As for the Senate 27 race, critical for Republicans hoping to flip the Senate. So we are watching those numbers here tonight. Michelle, Jonathan, back to you.
Okay.
All right, Megan, thank you. We want to toss now over to Scott Thuman. And I was wondering if tonight there's been a lot of talk about the governor and his role on the campaign. He's been campaigning so much for the candidates out there. Is tonight in any way, can it be read as a referendum on Youngkin?
To some degree, but only if you're looking at him in the aspect of, does he have presidential potential, right? I mean, there was a PAC out there that rose another $5 million in the last quarter for him, a lot of it pushing the issues that he believes in, hoping that this might propel him in case he were to be the one to somehow supplant former President Trump from the position he currently has as a front runner. As you've pointed out throughout the evening, though, when we were talking off camera, of course, very late in the game in some respects, he's already missed deadlines for ballots. So
Which doesn't mean
it doesn't mean it precludes him, but it certainly puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit. Look, it's a bit premature to talk about it. At the same time, people are looking for that ripcord option. What do you do if Trump's convicted or something else? So either way, Glenn Youngkin has a larger voice. Now, not delivering on another desired red wave for Republicans, does that hurt him? Maybe a tiny bit, but these are local races. Very difficult to pin all that on someone.
But the fact that he's a Republican governor in a state that largely has been brushed with purple, maybe even blue in some areas, that says a lot. I mean, I think in the national scope, they would say, well, that's pretty impressive.
Sure.
Like, that was like Hogan in
Biden
Maryland.
won the state by 10 points, and then Youngkin wins.
Right.
But what he showed you is that if you do pick those issues like education, like parental rights, like crime, you can buck the system or even a trend.
Right.
Now, the biggest takeaway, I think, tonight is that if you talk about abortion, sure, we saw that in Ohio there was a clear statement.
Right.
Virginia, we just don't really know. So that may be a Democratic playbook. If you're Republicans, you go on crime, you go on education, you go, of course, economy. 1 year out, a lot can still happen. There could be war, there could be conflict that it reflects poorly on one party or another. But time will tell, and it is too early to say that tonight tells us what's going to happen in 2024.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how each party pivots on their messaging following tonight's results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there will be a lot of dissecting it, but I don't know that Virginia, being as purple as it is the solution for either party at this point.
It'll be so interesting to see what happens. And again, the night's still young as far as these results. So for all we know, we're going to end up with exactly the same thing as we did prior to the election.
And there is a disgruntled electorate all across the country. The unfavorable numbers for Trump and Biden tell you all you need to know. People are looking at RFK Jr. suddenly. Look, we don't think he's going to be a contender, but it shows you that people don't love what they're seeing out there in politics right now. They're looking for other solutions. That's not just nationally. It's in Virginia, it's in Ohio, it's in bellwether states all across the country.
And Dave, your
It's
thoughts?
just as purple as your tie is tonight, sir.
Which is why I wore it. It's
10 out of 10, Jonathan.
just being in the
10 out
neutral
of 10.
zone. You want to be neutral on a
You
night
hit it
like
right
this.
on the head.
Yeah. All right, listen, thanks very much. We're going to take a quick break here. Thank you for joining us for our special coverage. You can join us at 7 News at 11 o'clock for the very latest results and live team coverage. So we're just getting warmed up here.
after the 11 p.m. show. Could you drop in the 11 p.m. Russet Perry sought into the morning show whip for us? Hey, Nick's Mike.
Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4.
Uh-huh. 5 4 3 2 1. Testing 5 4 3. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Jackson.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check.
11. Your voice, your vote.